It just got very real as we have a huge update as it pertains to Kevin Durant. And this situation has taken a major turn. We'll break down exactly what this new report is and discuss what it means going forward for the Boston Celtics, as well as a few other updates to go over today. But before we get into it, if you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Celtics content. Your guys' support has been unbelievable. We're on the road now to the big goal of 10,000 subscribers. So you want to continue to support. You guys have been beasts. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Ladies and gentlemen, there's some interesting conversations to be had today and some reports that have come out just a couple minutes ago, an hour ago, surrounding Kevin Durant and not only his future with the Phoenix Suns, but how this directly impacts the Boston Celtics, as rumors are starting to pick up on that regard as well. Let's just dive right into it here now. Let's start with the first report of the day here. So the Phoenix Suns have reportedly lowered their asking price for Kevin Durant per Kelly. Phoenix is aggressive in pursuit of A, trading Kevin Durant, and B, regaining full control of their draft capital starting with the number 10 pick in next month's draft, team sources said. Since the conclusion of the season, Houston has fielded several calls from Phoenix, who have gradually lowered their asking price for Durant, and there is a price where the Rockets will be interested, and with a fear, of course, doubt remains over a deal materializing. So they're, of course, talking about directly the Houston Rockets, but as this pertains to the Boston Celtics, it got very real. Now, if Brad Stevens in the Celtics front office wants to go out and get Kevin Durant, which we'll dive into in a minute, how it will work, how it affects the cap, all these different things, it is now much more possible than it ever was because, but that's also true for other teams as well, as the asking price has been lowered. And obviously, over the past few months, and really dating back to most recent trade deadline when the Suns were trying to get rid of Kevin Durant, there was conversations about the Warriors, all these different things. Their asking price was known to be, according to Shams, pretty high, and that's why a deal, of course, never materialized because the Suns didn't want, they don't want to keep Kevin Durant. It doesn't really make sense given their completely, detrimental season they had last year, their failure of a year. But now that their asking price is lowered, this could be a very unique and sneaky opportunity here for the Celtics if they want to trade some of their cap hit, specifically Kristaps Porziņģis, for an aging Kevin Durant and kind of just swap the cap hit for age and then kind of go from there. And we'll dive into that in a minute. Because as it relates to Kristaps, the Suns are reportedly prioritizing acquiring a center in Kevin Durant trade talks. The Suns have indicated to teams that center is at a premium for them in any KD talks. He might stick around, but their biggest interest is solving the center position, which has been a disaster since moving on from DeAndre Ayton. And this is where, again, it gets very intriguing for the Celtics, but of course a lot of teams in general here. Now, the Celtics are in a unique situation. We all know what their trade plans are in the sense of trading. They're going to need to trade Jrue Holiday, probably both of them, Kristaps Porziņģis, and Tatum missing next year with an injury. But if they want to go out and grab Kevin Durant, and the asking price is lowered a lot, you have, of course, now the Suns wanting a center, which the Celtics have in Kristaps Porziņģis. So the Celtics also need a center themselves here, so they'd have to do some, maneuvering. It opens up a very unique opportunity where the Celtics can almost sneak in and get a deal done if they really wanted to do that. We think back to March, a couple months ago, when Nick Wright came out and said two totally unrelated people, both of whom have reputations for knowing things that other people don't know, have said to me, watch out for Kevin Durant in Boston. It's not like the Celtics haven't been linked to Boston before. Back in March, late March, the Celtics were linked to, again, Kevin Durant, two different unrelated sources according to Nick Wright. Again, it is Nick Wright, so take it with a grain of salt. But we assume the interest has remained the same, and now especially following the fact that their asking price is lowered by a significant margin, it's almost all setting up to where if the Celtics want to go out and get a guy like Kevin Durant, which we'll dive into now in a minute, will put them in a very intriguing situation and position. They could go out and do that if they want to shake things up. And let's kind of dive into how this will work. We're going to keep this report from March in mind while we do this. Also dating back to the Nets in 2022, we know the Celtics were linked to Kevin Durant. They've clearly enamored him over most teams have, enamored Kevin Durant. He's one of the best players of all time. And top 20 player of all time for sure. He's very, very good. And even now with his age, and he is aging, he's aging pretty well because he has a fantastic skill set, doesn't rely a ton on athleticism. Obviously, he's one of the best shots and one of the best scorers we've ever seen. It is very intriguing. We even see some articles here from, I believe this was Yahoo, whatever it was, talking about how the Celtics could be in an interesting spot here. Even without the rosters for next season finalized, the Celtics and the Suns have $225 million and $218 million respectively committed to the salaries. To pull off a KD trade, either for both, would have to shed enough money to wiggle under the aforementioned second apron, currently projected to be a bit over $207 million. That can mean teams with cap space basically have to do a bunch of cap, circumvention. But this article was kind of diving into the fact how it could happen. And let's dive into how this would happen now. So we know that, again, you look at the depth chart here. Their cap situation is very interesting. They're a second apron team. So Jayson Tatum is out next year. Of course, Derrick White, Jrue Holiday, Jaylen Brown, Al Horford, and Kristaps Porziņģis. A trade would have to be in probably a 3-team deal involving both Jrue Holiday and Kristaps. Now, if you're curious about how this, salary cap and things would work, I wanted to bring up this thread from Reddit here. So you can see the first person, he says, I thought Boston was over the second apron, meaning they had to trade Jaylen Brown. Quick search says this is literally impossible, but then an edit again, this works if you bring in a third team. And this is basically how it would work for the Celtics if they were to get Kevin Durant, and why it could make some sense. So they would have to initially shed, the Celtics that is, $18 million this offseason, which would get them under the second apron. And that's, of course, Jrue with room to spare, and then you aggregate again. So you, of course, trade Jrue Holiday, which you have to do anyway, for a player who makes $14 million or less. That would be step one. You could probably get that done. A lot of teams would like Jrue Holiday. Step two would be to trade that guy that you get back in the Jrue trade who makes $14 million or less, plus Kristaps Porziņģis and filler for Durant's $50 million salary. And that's basically what you have to do. So a couple of things you'd have to do. Basically trade Jrue Holiday separately for a player who makes under 14, combine him with Kristaps to match the 50, and then you're there. Because then at that point, the Suns get Kristaps and assuming another solid player, maybe a first-round pick or something, and then the salaries work there. And essentially what you're doing is you're trading Kristaps Porziņģis' injury risk next season for Kevin Durant's old age. But also here, which is something to keep in mind, is the Suns with this framework would also get under the second apron, so they have some motivation to do that as well. So it's a little bit convoluted, but of course we've seen trades a lot more convoluted than this. You're basically trading Jrue and Kristaps for Kevin Durant is essentially the deal here. And assuming the Celtics, which they will, and the new ownership, all these different things, want to get rid of Kristaps and Jrue, trading those two and taking a gamble on Kevin Durant's health could make some sense, because then, of course, depending how things go, you're at a point where you're basically, you have Jaylen Brown, you have, of course, Kevin Durant then at that point. You're going to hope that you can maybe win, get into a playoff spot, and see what happens from there. You still have a very solid foundation. But Kevin Durant is a pending unrestricted free agent after next year. So in theory, it would be a rental. But if Kevin Durant likes Boston, you take that risk, obviously a historic franchise, and then maybe he'll sign for cheaper the following year in the offseason, and then you compare him with Jayson Tatum. Similar to any deals we're kind of rocking right now, it would be, of course, getting a guy in, seeing how he fits with the current team, and then going from there with Jayson Tatum. Because Jayson Tatum is the core of this team. Jaylen Brown's future in Boston seems a little bit up in the air. But bringing in Kevin Durant, you have very high upside. Could you win a championship with the team with Jaylen Brown, Kevin Durant, Derrick White? You'd have to make some other additions, but I mean, who knows? Anything can happen. The East is wide open, especially with a lot of the teams kind of just, the Pacers are in the finals this year. I doubt that'll happen again next year. Maybe it does, depending on what they do. The Knicks reportedly trading Cat or working on trading Cat. It's wide open. So it's very interesting that this could work. It definitely takes some work. Pros, cons, but it got very real nonetheless. We know how good Kevin Durant is and will be, and I think with the Celtics under Joe Mazzulla could craft up some very interesting things for him. But let me know down below what your thoughts are. Do you want a trade like this to happen? And of course, take some maneuvering. It takes some cap, circumvention, all these different things. But most importantly, it would land you a Hall of Famer and one of the best players of all time. So let me know down below what your thoughts are. Thank you guys for watching. You guys are beasts. See you later.